Welcome everyone to 9 Radio. Decided to do a class tonight. I was doing them on Facebook Live for a while, but that was being sabotaged, but it's all good. So decided to do a subject matter that I feel like is very necessary. I see a lot of people have no idea exactly what the Trilateral Commission is, but it does need to be talked about, and it actually needs to be defined. Just to the best degree I can do, and also present more information as well, and give you some websites you can actually look up, so that you can do more research for yourself after listening to this class. It's very necessary to do. Yeah. So, just want to start off by giving you a brief background of what the Trilateral Commission is. It was started in 1973, actually, by David Rockefeller. But the schematic of it was from Zbigniew Brzezinski, who was a professor at Columbia University. Zbigniew Brzezinski, who was the head of Standard Oil and of Chase, of course, J.P. Morgan Chase, wanted to start something that would be a splinter group outside of the Bilderbergs. And the Trilateral Commission, which is actually under the Council of Foreign Relations, is basically a way to have specific countries, whether it be United States, certain parts of Asia, certain parts of Europe, be able to basically be like a daughter of what the Council of Foreign Relations is, which is basically something to run and go into different countries of the world and be able to control the, how do I put this, to control the resources of those countries, and basically to dominate however they want. Whenever they need to put out executive orders, they do so. When you look at presidents, just before I go into, and just to give you an idea of what the Trilateral Commission is, when you look at presidents from, George H.W. Bush, Jimmy Carter, Bill Clinton, you can go on to vice presidents, Dick Cheney, people like Henry Kissinger. These are all people that were from the Bilderberg group. These are all Bilderbergs. Everybody that I just mentioned in Bilderberg. But when you become the officer of the Trilateral Commission, usually it's the President of the United States, from like a Bill Clinton to a Barack Obama to a George W. Bush, even to right now Donald Trump. He's an officer of the Trilateral Commission. They're able to put out certain executive orders that, if you look at Congress and Senate, the Congress and Senate literally is if you go on C-SPAN now, you can see Congress and Senate, talking about ideas and trying to pass bills and things like that, but that's literally Bilderberg, literally right in front of you. It's like just workers of plans that they want to set in place for the world. But the whole thing comes down to basically world domination through resources. That's why when you look at the Clintons, when they went into Haiti, they were able to do what they did. They were able to go in, get specific resources out of Haiti that was necessary for them to build on the wealth that they already created, that they already had, and to make themselves billionaires. You're dealing with Clintons who at one point they were in the millions, but they weren't nowhere near where they are now. So now they're in a whole different bracket of the Trilateral Commission. And so it's touching on what we call the Council of Foreign Relations again, or what people call the CFR, because again, the CFR, Council of Foreign Relations, was established literally right around the same year, 1973. So it's very necessary to basically look at the origins and who played a part in creating this group that basically controls the resources of the world. That's the whole point of it. When you go into Zbigniew Brzezinski, he was the one that was basically over foreign affairs in Jimmy Carter's regime. I won't say regime, but just administration. And when you go into, let's say, again, going back into the CFR, Council of Foreign Relations, which was a Rockefeller-funded group. And that is what people want to say is the Illuminati and this and that, because they're able to, again, control the resources of the world. But just to give you a hierarchy of what I'm talking about, you have Bilderberg, you have the Council of Foreign Relations, and you have the Trilateral Commission. And the Trilateral Commission is usually what you see now when you see executive orders being put out by Trump. When you see the Council of Foreign Relations, they have their own separate group meetings that have nothing to do with Trump at all. You know, you have the Rockefellers, you have the Fords, you have the Rothschilds that go to these meetings and decide what they will do in certain parts of the world. For example, you have someone like, let's say, Nicholas Rockefeller, who was a part of the Council of Foreign Relations. You'll never see him, but he's a part of that. And he was the one to decide that there was going to be a 9/11 that was going to take place. He decided that there was going to be a feminist movement, a women's liberation movement that was going to break up the black family and be able to collect more of the currency of the United States away from women and men. And he used a CIA operative, which is Gloria Steinem, to achieve this goal. But when you look at a book by Zbigniew Brzezinski called The Grand Chessboard, that was one of the most important books that he wrote. And David Rockefeller was almost a fan of Zbigniew Brzezinski, because he read a book in 1970 called Between the Two Ages that was written by Brzezinski, and that was like what he wrote that said, I need to get Brzezinski on our team. And because he gave the right idea of how we're going to control the world and Africa and such and such. And it's funny that we do this class and that, we talk about what's going on now in terms of the Trilateral Commission, because you have, the movie or the three-part series Madiba, starring Lawrence Fishburne, that is about Nelson Mandela. Well, little do a lot of people know that when Mandela got out of prison, he assisted David Rockefeller in basically going into South Africa and controlling the gold of Africa and controlling the oil. Because, again, the whole purpose that keeps the Council of Foreign Relations where they are and, the Bilderbergs where they are in terms of controlling the wealth of the world is the resources. If you don't have any resources that allows your currency to sit on anything, it's worth nothing. So, and that, again, is connected to the Federal Reserve. And that's the whole point of what they're trying to do as a Trilateral Commission. So when you see Trump in front of you and he's doing executive order this, executive order that, and you have these advisors and everything like that, these are advisors, but these are all people who are like people of the same Trilateral Commission, and the president is an officer of that Trilateral Commission. He's nothing but an officer that implements and puts in place certain policies. And it's very important that we know certain things that are taking place in front of us. See, we think, oh, it's the president, oh, it's this, and oh, it's that. It doesn't mean nothing. But no, it's very important that you know exactly what's going on. So it's very important. And so, again, back in 1973, the Council of Foreign Relations, the Trilateral Commission was created. And it was created to be another group just like the Council of Foreign Relations, but except have an officer that's in charge that no one would think is an officer of it, and it is the President of the United States. But in reality, to them, he's not the President of the United States. That's a front. He is an officer of the Trilateral Commission. And within the Trilateral Commission, I'm just going to name some names again just to give you an idea. David Rockefeller, of course. He's, of course, the chairman of Chase and the chairman of the Council of Foreign Relations. You have Dick Cheney, William Cohen, Dianne Feinstein, David Yergin, Henry Kissinger, President George H.W. Bush, Jimmy Carter, Bill Clinton, Federal Reserve Chairman Alan Greenspan and Paul Volcker, Caspar Weinberger, Secretary of Defense under Reagan, Yotaro Kobayashi, Chairman of Fuji Xerox Company, John H. Bryan, former CEO of Sara Lee Bakeries, affiliated with the World Economic Forum and part of the board of Sara Lee, Goldman Sachs, General Motors, British Petroleum, and Bank One. And just to go a little further down, I'm just going to name some names, but it's very important. I'm going to go down to name your AIG, ExxonMobil, Johnson & Johnson. You know, the chairman of Johnson & Johnson is James E. Burke. AIG, you have Hank Greenberg, and of ExxonMobil, you have Lee Raymond. ExxonMobil is very important for us to study because they are very much connected to J.P. Morgan Chase, which is, of course, connected to David Rockefeller. And it's funny when we talk about different gas stations and different companies and this and that, most of the people that we support the most, ExxonMobil, Johnson & Johnson, like more than anybody else, are the ones that are setting up black genocide. You know, the whole purpose, in order to put an executive order in place, such as what Trump is doing, first thing he's doing is, you know, with the wall being built and things, it's going to cost billions of dollars to do so. It's going to be built. You understand? The whole purpose is to put certain people, keep certain people out and keep certain people in. It's almost a form of a covert internment camp where they know how to separate themselves, rich and poor or elite and poor, where they can just drain the resource out of certain areas and be able to basically get the people of the United States, specifically the United States, to be dependent on the wealth or the wealthy, because there will not be enough resources. But specifically, when we deal with blacks now in America, they know that we are extremely centralized. The Trilateral Commission knows that we are extremely centralized. So they know how to basically corner us and corridor us in certain areas that are centralized that we call ghettos of the United States. That's why, if you notice, there's gentrification going all over the United States where they're pushing blacks out of their areas. And so now they're able to push us out, and then now we're going to have to move out of where we've been living in for years to have to consolidate in even smaller and smaller areas. So these are all things that the officer of the Trilateral Commission, which would be the President of the United States, is able to put in place. So now you have people, and it's a revolving door. The Senate is a revolving door of people that are in the Bilderberg group. You know, for example, you can have, let's say, John Kerry all of a sudden can run for president within the next 4 years, or they can dig up Michael Dukakis out of nowhere. They were still a part of that same group. See, blacks are ignorant to politics. They think that, well, this person is running for president. It doesn't make much of it. You know, it doesn't mean anything. He's running for president, not knowing that people like John Kerry and people like remember Gerald Ford, they were all still a part of the CIA. They were all part, especially Gerald Ford. He's part of the CIA, as well as John Kerry. But being in that, not knowing that that's a spider web from CIA to FBI to NSA to armed forces, none of it is disconnected. But all of that is still under the Trilateral Commission, which is under the Council of Foreign Relations, which is under Bilderberg. These are all under this. That's why I talked about last year of the basic, second, third, fourth floor of white supremacy. That it's not just one group. They were able to split up into different factions to be able to continue to control the resources, specifically of Africa. Because whenever you look up certain sites, and I'm just quoting from a specific site here just to give you a source to look up, the JeremiahProject.com/New World Order / the Trilateral Commission. And I'll also give you another site, too, here. Give you another one to look up so that you can do more research outside of just myself. Very important that you all do that. And one of the main things that back in the 70s that they wanted to be able to do with the Trilateral Commission was to be able to put together specific world powers. It wasn't just going to be United States of Rockefeller and whatnot. It was specific factions of the world that was going to be under or just connected to that were going to be the Trilateral Commission. And that's why it says tri, because the word tri means three. And those that made up the Trilateral Commission was, of course, United States, which was David Rockefeller, and then you had, at the time, parts, Tokyo, and then Europe. So those are the three groups that originally was the Trilateral Commission. And so at this point, that's why if you go back to my father's book, 666, on the cover, it was very important. People didn't get the symbolism of like the beast with the 7 heads and everything. Those 7 heads symbolize 7 countries of the Trilateral Commission. And that's very important that we actually know that, because my father, in a very covert way, was basically giving you exactly what the beast was. The beast was a 7-head country group that the Trilateral Commission basically is. And then you have the main officer that they call the leader of the free world, which is the President of the United States, that is, regardless of who it is at that given time, as now will be Donald Trump. And it's funny that they didn't pick someone this time that was, had political experience, whether he was a Senate, governor, mayor, or whatever. They picked someone who was an elitist to a high degree. So they picked one of their own. It was almost like Rockefeller said, I'm just going to put one of my nephews in when he put Trump in. And that's exactly what he did. That's literally letting the public know we can put anyone in here and you can't do anything about it, because it's about getting the job done of controlling the resources of the country. Of the world. And let me go further down. Something that you all need to know is that you got to realize that the main thing that they really want to control now is gold. Since 1973, and I'm quoting again, there has been an overarching plan to quietly centralize gold into private hands using incrementally created wealth made possibly by rapidly inflating paper currency. And see, I'm just going to go down again. 1976, further, Anthony Sutton wrote, the assault on gold today is an integral part of a planned move into a new economic order under the dominance of a single country. It was Nazi Germany in the 1940s. It is the United States in the 1970s. In brief, the war on gold that we observe today and discuss below is dollar imperialism, designed to maintain the U.S. dollar as the only world currency without competitors. The purpose is the formation of a world totalitarian state under Wall Street dominance. And who controls Wall Street? Of course, Rockefeller does. So you have to look at things from an honest perspective and not what we want it to be. And I'm just going to go a little further up into, how they describe the Trilateral Commission. Actions taken by the Trilateral Commission generally help the banking industry. Jeremiah Novak, writing in the July 1977 issue of Atlantic, said that after international oil prices rose when Nixon set price controls on American domestic oil, many developing countries were required to borrow from banks to buy oil, many of them with doubtful repayment abilities. All told, private multinational banks, particularly Rockefeller's Chase Manhattan, have loaned nearly 52 billion, to developing countries. An overhauled IMF would provide another source of credit for these nations and would take the big private banks off the hook. This proposal is a cornerstone of the Trilateral Commission. And the whole point of it is to loan out enormous amounts of money to underdeveloped countries, knowing that they can't pay it back. So then they can say, okay, well, look, you can't pay it back, so you owe us something. And most of these underdeveloped countries, that's maybe in Africa and, of course, Haiti, they have a lot in abundance of natural resources that they refuse to reveal to the public, of course, gold and, of course, oil. So you can't pay us back. I tell you what, we're going to go in there and take your natural resources. And that's the whole point. The whole point of the Trilateral Commission is to keep the currency, the paper currency, on real value, and that's to continue to rape the resources of the planet and to instill a form of domination economically over everyone else. And so that's the whole point whenever you have these executive orders, realize everything that Trump is putting out is backed. It's not like, okay, he says this, oh, man, we really disagree, we're going to stop him. Like, if they really wanted to stop the things that he was doing, they would have stopped it already. Remember, he is their officer. He, again, just to continue to hammer this home, he is the officer that they have in place of the Trilateral Commission, but the people that are still controlling him, because he's nothing but a puppet, is the Rockefellers of the world. It is still the Clinton family. It's still the Ford family. Still the Rothschild family. See, people think that when Hillary and Trump were going at it, that it was like, yeah, no. They were all under the same family, the Bilderbergs, and they still were officers of the Trilateral Commission, which was beneath the Council of Foreign Relations. You understand? And then the Council of Foreign Relations still beneath the Bilderbergs. So they're all under the same family, that you just have different factions of the same group. You got to understand which group is what. Understand which group is what, but realize that David Rockefeller, as well as the Rothschild family, are still the heads of what you would call the Bilderbergs and the Council of Foreign Relations, the Trilateral Commission, along with George Soros, who actually funds these, he funds Black Lives Matter. He funds when they go to jail. He even funds this huge feminist movement now that has a lot of black women jumping into it. These are all funded by the same groups: Bilderberg, Council of Foreign Relations, Trilateral Commission. You know what I'm saying? But specifically, we're focusing today on the Trilateral Commission because in front of you have a president who's an officer of the Trilateral Commission. So it's very important that we really do our homework in what's going on today and who controls what. And I want to go from trilateral.org. This is actually defining what the Trilateral Commission is, and I'm going to give you 3 chairmen. Again, the website is called trilateral.org for those who are writing this down. You have Jean-Claude Trichet, which is the European chairman. You have Joseph S. Nye Jr., which is the North American chairman. And you have Yasuka Hasegawa, which is the Asian Pacific chairman. And they define, this is on their website, the commission was originally created in 1973 to bring together experienced leaders within the private sector to discuss issues of global concern at a time when communication and cooperation between Europe, North America, and Asia were lacking. The Commission has grown since its early days to include members from more countries in these regions, and it continues to find that study and dialogue about the pressing problem facing our planet remain as important today as in 1973. Problems and threats have changed, but their importance has only increased due to the more interconnected and interdependent world in which we now live. We hope you find this information, this website, helpful with understanding the broad range of interests and views of the Trilateral Commission or Trilateral membership. And as you can see, the 3 main countries or 3 main parts of the world that they have, and this is very key to know, that's the Trilateral Commission, is Europe, North America, and Asia. And these are the 3 main groups or 3 main parts of the world who have their hands or parasitic hands in Africa to this day, from gold to diamonds to oil. And always, I'm going back to Zbigniew Brzezinski again, he was one of the main people in the book The Grand Chessboard that stated that blacks in America or Africans in America and Africans in Africa are not to make any real connection towards each other. And that's the main thing, is that we have to keep blacks in America centralized to themselves, and we have to keep Africans centralized to themselves. Matter of fact, let's make them enemies of themselves so that they cannot come together and find a way to control the resources of their home continent, which is Africa. That's the whole purpose of it. It's the Trilateral Commission originally started off with just the 3 parts of the world, that's Asia, North America, and Europe, but as it expanded into several other different branches of the world. That's why I say, again, go back to Leviathan, written by my father, Dr. York, on on the cover you have at least 7 heads, and that was dealing with 7 countries of the world. So it's very important to understand what you're dealing with, and that's why I felt it was very necessary to do this class, because it just needs to be basically broken down. All you have to do for the main thing, for those who also want to connect the dots, all you have to do is look at the major corporations of the world. I mentioned Exxon. Exxon Mobil. The ones that make the most money are the ones that have the biggest stake in the Trilateral Commission, and they're the ones that, if you look at let's say, for example, the oldest leaders of, let's say, even Walmart. You could take the oldest chairman of Walmart, or the oldest CEO of Walmart, is someone who is connected to the Trilateral Commission and who has a stake and has a seat in the Council of Foreign Relations. So all this stuff all of it is interwoven in one big web of white supremacy over the planet. So it's very necessary and it's very important for us to know. And the 2 sites, I'm just going to give you the 2 sites that I got the information from so someone can verify the information for themselves. It's www.jeremiahproject.com/New World Order / the Trilateral Commission, and the official website of the Trilateral Commission. And you can tell you're on that site because if you go on the site, it has several flags of all the different countries that is connected and that's under the Trilateral Commission. So, and the name of that site, of course, is trilateral.org. For those that want to verify sources and get further information on themselves. So, a big player in this, just to continue, I have no problem repeating myself and reiterating just for people who just need to get it heard again. Zbigniew Brzezinski was a very integral part because he gave the schematic of what David Rockefeller wanted to do to the world of controlling the resources and ultimately controlling the currency. Because if you control the resources, you control the currency of the planet. And he recruited him in to give him an idea of what he wanted to set up in creating the Trilateral Commission back in 1973. And again, it only started off as just 3 parts, 3 countries, North America, Europe, and Asia, but now it's up to about 7, and it's even more now than 7. It's like at least about 25 to 30 at this point. So it's very important that we know what we're dealing with, and a big part of this is the fact that most of us are confused as to what white supremacy is. I said it was, before you had different levels to it, because you got to realize at one point, this is just side note, but this is still a reality, that when we go back to the Civil Rights Movement, we have to realize that the same people who was the Rockefeller family, the same people that funded the Civil Rights Movement funded the Klan, because the whole point of the Civil Rights Movement was the Civil Rights Movement was to contain certain types of niggas. They was containing a certain group of blacks, and the Klan was to contain the low-level blacks. That was a plan that they had set in place since the early 1920s from John D. Rockefeller Jr. So all this was basically set in place, because the whole deal that the Talented Tenth under Du Bois set with John D. Rockefeller Jr. in controlling the currency of what went into funding black schools and creating black schools. The whole purpose of doing that was to control the enemies of them. If we can educate our enemy, we can control our enemy. So therefore, we're funding the education of our enemy, which was blacks. So that is how they looked at things, and that's what they put in place. Of course, as I said, with Andrew Carnegie as well as Joel Spingarn. These are all different key players in white supremacy as well. So again, it's very important that we know what the Trilateral Commission is and know exactly what it does and what it's doing in front of you. So each time you go on C-SPAN and you look and you see Trump signing something and he's holding something up and he's standing looking kind of goofy or whatever, and he has the advisors around him, This is a Trilateral Commission right in front of you, and you're looking at the officer of the Trilateral Commission. So it's very important that we make sure that we know exactly what we're dealing with. So hopefully you all will at some point do your own research for yourself. I've given 2 sources, and so you can have a good idea of what you're dealing with, so you can get, as well as, get some more information for yourself. So I'm going to go back into the room. 1 second, family. All right. I'm back. Any more questions or any questions at all? Okay. All right. No questions. What I'll do is within the next couple of days, I'll be putting this class on my YouTube page just to make sure I'm getting everything out as quickly as I possibly can. And I want to thank everyone that's actually was able to listen to the class, and hopefully you're able to get some information from this, so we'll be able to, help you all with a good idea and have a good idea of what you're dealing with when you're dealing with what white supremacy is. When, actually being able to define what the Trilateral Commission is. When you see a Trump in front of you, you're dealing with an officer of the Trilateral Commission. He's not as dumb as you think he is. He knows exactly what he's doing, but it has people that he's working for, of course. He is the officer of the Trilateral Commission. They had to have someone in place to create this covert idea of what the American public thinks it is. It works off of democracy. See, we think democracy, we vote for democracy and we voted you in and we have the popular vote, the Electoral College comes in. No, Electoral College is the Council of Foreign Relations. We just don't realize that. They're literally pieces of the Rockefeller family with the Rothschilds and the Soros and the Fords and the Clintons that decide, okay, this is who we're going to put in place to continue the dominance of the world through the resources and through violence in certain foreign countries, especially and specifically Africa. So I'll be putting this up very soon. I have a lot more to put on YouTube. I'm just going to put this up very soon. So just want to say peace, Hotep, Black Power, and Wadu, family.